Round 11 coverage of Grand Prix Las Vegas. The format's modern. Commentators in the booth are myself, Brian David Marshall, and Hall of Famer Paul Rietzel. And we're watching another Hall of Famer in Martin Juza here. He's 11-0. He's off to the races here with humans. Matt Nass, one of the most innovative deck builders on the Pro Tour for the last couple of years now. Now he's playing Krark-Clan Ironworks, a deck he and his co-workers have really figured out a way to make really one of the scarier decks in this format.
Yeah, and both players, I believe the last two remaining undefeated in the field, they're certainly we're narrowing that down. So at 11-0, they're in a situation where a win here, and they're extremely likely to be in the top 8 of the tournament. So
there were 18 undefeated players overnight, and these guys have obviously plowed their way through two undefeated players to get here. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, is first play for Martin Juza, and Matt Nass has to pay 2 mana for a Pyrite Spellbomb that can hopefully deal with it next turn.
Yeah, and when Martin kept an opening hand of 7 cards and didn't do anything on turn 1, kind of surprisingly, I think Matt will have expected that turn 2 Thalia, which the vast majority of the hands that Martin's going to keep that don't do anything turn 1 have that turn 2 Thalia, which is so powerful against the Ironworks strategy.
You said the humans deck doesn't really have a lot of ways to interact with this Ironworks deck when we were looking at the matchup before we started. What are the cards that we should look for from Martin that will affect how this matchup plays out?
Yeah, so the 3 key cards in his deck are Thalia, the Guardian of Thraben, Meddling Mage, which can, of course, name the eponymous Krark-Clan Ironworks and completely shut Matt down, and then the Kitesail Freebooter that we just saw enter the battlefield, which is a great way for Martin to disrupt Matt. So Martin, doesn't have one of those really explosive Champion of the Parish fueled beatdown draws, but he has the disruptive elements of his deck, which are really important against Matt.
So it looks at a hand. Looks like there's a land, 2 engineered explosives, a Mind Stone, and a which one is the
Ichor Wellspring.
Ichor Wellspring. Okay.
Yeah, and Matt doesn't really have any bit of combo going, right? But he's got all of the great interactive elements that are so good against humans. So the Pyrite Spellbomb, which can handle the Thalia, engineered explosives, which could potentially kill both of Martin's permanents. Matt not set up terribly here to be able to handle Martin's early draw and no third land from Martin as well.
Yeah, and he decides to take the Mind Stone to just keep Matt from accelerating his mana.
Yeah, with duplicate engineered explosives, Martin would have loved to have taken one of them out of Matt's hand, but that's not going to be an option.
All right, there's the Wellspring. Draws a card, has to pay 3 to do it. He also has an energy from his Ether Hub.
Yeah, so he had an option of potentially casting the engineered explosives that turn. Would have cost him 3 mana. He could have cast it with Sunburst 2, I believe. But not really under a ton of life total pressure. So he's going to take the opportunity to just develop his board a little bit.
Well, here's a Thalia's Lieutenant from Martin Juza, and he is going to bash in for 5 here, drop Matt to 13. And Matt is going to be pressed to deploy that engineered explosives.
Yeah.
So this is a weird thing with Thalia where he can play it for 1, but Thalia forces him to pay for second. He can pay 2 colors and still get an engineered explosive for 2 under Thalia. It's a
very cool.
Weird, cool interaction of this format.
It's interesting. It's a non-interaction that I even knew about. So that's Matt Nass showing kind of his knowledge of the archetype, and certainly something that he was prepared for. So
then engineered explosives for 2 just cleans up the board. Means Matt Nass gets to draw a card from that Ichor Wellspring.
Oh, and return the Mind Stone to his hand that had been removed with the Freebooter. So Matt is really firing on all cylinders, and Martin only able to add a Noble Hierarch. So Matt's in great shape here.
Yeah. Noble Hierarch's nothing to sneeze at. But.
No, nothing, nothing to sneeze at. But at this point, Martin has only gotten Matt down to 13. All of his disruptive elements are in his own graveyard right now, and Matt has tons of flexibility and time to assemble his Krark-Clan Ironworks combination, and even the backup Pyrite Spellbomb if Martin were able to get a Meddling Mage on the battlefield.
Yeah, and here's a Scrap Trawler, so that's a big part of the combo ultimately for Matt. And lets him do a bunch of kooky things here. So, for example, he can use this Pyrite Spellbomb to kill the Noble Hierarch, and then gets to get a 0 casting cost artifact back from his graveyard, which is the Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, and again, Matt's firing on all cylinders. Martin is still kind of waiting on the mana to deploy his threats. At this point, though, even if you were to kind of, and it looks like he has finally found a third land, it might be a little bit too little too late as Matt's really kind of...
All right, so Reflector Mage is going to come down, bounce the Scrap Trawler, keep it away for a turn, and give Martin maybe a chance to find something to do here.
Yeah, but he's passing to a combination player with 5 mana and like 8 cards in his hand, so Martin can't love that feeling.
Yeah, how important is it for the Humans deck? They seem like a deck that just wants to get out on the board early. How often do you see a game where they're able to have a robust mid-game or late game even?
Yeah, the thing about the deck is that it's such a low land count deck that it usually has a pretty high density of threats. So even if he gets 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 by some sort of a Engineer Explosives or a Wrath of God type effect, he can usually rebuild from that pretty quickly. But, in this situation, he's not playing against a deck that's trying to grind him out. He's playing against a deck that could just kill him in one turn.
All right, here we see Matt Nass trying to figure out what he's going to do here.
2 mana floating, unfloating, refloating.
Another Mind Stone.
Storm count is 2.
Yeah, and then he's going to stick an Engineered Explosives for 3.
Yeah, I think pretty sharp play here from Matt. Obviously, he knows about the Reflector Mage that's on the battlefield, but I think that he will probably be expecting that Martin has some cards like Mantis Riders or additional Reflector Mages in his hand. In addition to that...
Well, Martin didn't show him really anything on 1 or 2 when he had 3 mana in play.
Right. In addition to that, Matt wants to doesn't want to have to sacrifice both of his Mind Stones before activating the Engineer Explosives. And, with all that said, he still has a backup Engineer Explosives if Martin were to play a bunch of 2 casting cost threats. So Matt kind of has all the angles covered here.
So what can Martin do to find his way out here?
The thing with Martin is that he doesn't really have a ton of ways to close the game out, right? Mantis Rider is going to be his best tool to get to sneak damage in.
He is holding at least 1.
Yeah. The problem is playing a Mantis Rider kind of plays right into that Engineer Explosive.
Right.
So
here's a Noble Hierarch. Athalia's Lieutenant. And he gets in for 4 here.
Yeah, it's decent, and Martin, intelligently is kind of diversifying his converted mana costs on the battlefield to play around Engineer Explosives as best he can. Unfortunately for Martin, this is the turn in which Matt's Scrap Trawler is reactivated. He's able to recast it, and as if anyone's watched the Krark-Clan Ironworks deck operate, it just does some filthy things once it gets Scrap Trawler onto the battlefield, and we see Matt immediately go to 3 mana because I think he wants to play with it on the field, but he has that Engineer Explosive he has to think of as well. Question is, does he want to sacrifice the explosives before playing Trawler? He says, that Reflector Mage, that's not going to beat me by itself. Let me just get going.
So now he's going to sacrifice a Mind Stone. That's going to get back the Pyrite Spellbomb.
And if you're like me and you like to solitaire your decks, shuffle and take test draws, the Krark-Clan Ironworks decks is one of the most fun decks to solitaire, with all of the Scrap Trawler and Krark-Clan Ironworks and all of the eggs and spell bombs and Mind Stones and things of that nature. It's a really fun deck to just operate without an opponent. And in this case, with all of Martin's disruptive threats in the graveyard, Matt really doesn't have an opponent right now. He just wants to be super careful, right? Matt is at 9, and Martin's deck with Thalia's Lieutenant and things like Mantis Rider is capable of producing sizable haste threats pretty quickly. So Matt just wants to be uber careful in how he navigates these next few turns to make sure that he doesn't accidentally die out of nowhere.
Right, on the score pad, Martin's winning.
Right.
He's at 26, Matt's at 9. Martin's got a lot of cards in hand. But this is the point where the Ironworks deck just gets to start doing stuff over and over and over again.
Right. And in theory, Martin could do some sort of a turn here where he, plays a Thalia's Lieutenant, and then Phantasmal Image to make another Thalia's Lieutenant. And if we didn't know that Matt had another Engineered Explosives in play, or in his hand, it could potentially be some kind of action, but Matt just has it all.
Now, Martin does have a Mantis Rider
Yes.
in hand.
Yes. The issue with the Mantis Rider is that, he's staring at an Engineered Explosives for 3.
Well, yeah, no, I'm thinking like, he's just trying to get a good hit in
Yes.
here, and then maybe be able to finish off with some kind of Mantis Rider action on the next turn.
Yes, the key, he wants to deal 5 damage to Matt. That's the key, to get Matt down to 4 life, and then a Mantis Rider with the Exalted benefit from Noble Hierarch would finish Matt off. But of course, Matt is a professional and very experienced with this deck, which of course means he's experienced in playing against the Humans matchup. We saw him correctly navigate the Thalia Engineered Explosives interaction, which is kind of cute earlier. So he's gonna be thinking about things like Mantis Rider at this point for sure.
Well, yeah. So, all right, here goes Engineered Explosives. That's going to take out his Scrap Trawler as well here.
If you are in the room, please report to the red side of the stage. If you are in the middle of a match, please inform a judge.
Maybe not.
Little pump fake.
There you see Engineered Explosives. So if you want any sense of just how complicated this deck is to play correctly, just watch, it's how rare is it to see any kind of indecision from Matt Nass playing a combo deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Martin has done a really good job. He had the information that he got earlier from the Kitesail freebooter, and he's trying his best to kind of lean on Matt. Matt doesn't have the Ironworks out. He's not threatening to kill Martin. He basically has removal spells and ways to recur them with the Scrap Trawler. But, ultimately, Martin's going to be able to put a pretty good attack together here.
So decides to kill the Thalia's Lieutenant before combat. With the Pyrite Spellbomb.
Yeah, and Martin is just trying to figure out if he wants to attack with this Noble Hierarch. The Hierarch would represent a trade for the Scrap Trawler. And then, Matt would be able to get back any artifact in his graveyard.
Or did he just draw a card with the Spellbomb?
No, I think he killed the Thalia's Lieutenant, yeah.
Okay.
There must have been a Thalia's Lieutenant trigger still on the stack, and he wanted to kill it before it grew. And there you see Scrap Trawler. I mean, really kind of the card that has made Krark-Clan Ironworks decks tier 1.
So Scrap Trawler, Engineered Explosives, go to the graveyard.
And so the interesting thing is that Matt chose to fire the explosives before damage, so could have chosen to trade the Scrap Trawler off for the Noble Hierarch. The fact that he didn't makes me think that he's probably planning on playing an Engineered Explosives for 1 this turn and cleaning up the Noble Hierarch that way.
He also got a Spellbomb back.
Right. So that handles the Thalia's Lieutenant on the battlefield.
Right.
So, again, his answers are lined up pretty well with what Martin's doing. And Martin's navigated a situation where Matt's having to kind of fight through all of these different waves, and then Martin's going to try to finish it with the Mantis Rider. But boy, that seems pretty slow right now, given what Matt's able to do.
All right, here's Engineered Explosives for 1. Get rid of the Champion of the Parish. Get rid of the Noble Hierarch. Now play another Scrap Trawler. Now play a Pyrite Spellbomb, which is going to get back an Engineered Explosives, by the way. Here's Mantis Rider. Boy, it feels like Martin is so close to turning the corner.
Yeah, and he's going to get him for 3 here.
But again, Pyrite Spellbomb and Engineered Explosives.
Yeah.
How many of them does Matt Nass have?
Yeah, well, Scrap Trawler means that he can just keep reusing them over and over and over again. And again,
pretty exciting. I mean, is this the best Engineered Explosive deck? No, I mean, no jokes. I mean, obviously, always a good card, but it really is kind of a monster in this deck because of that 0 converted mana cost where you're just able to get it back off of almost anything with Scrap Trawler.
Yeah, absolutely a monster in this deck, and this is the matchup in which I think it probably is the best in all of Modern. I mean, the Humans deck, what's great about it is also probably a weakness here in that the deck is highly redundant, very low to the ground, and really good with Ether Vial. Unfortunately, those are all things that play right into Engineered Explosives.
We see an ironically named card come into play in the land row for Matt Nass. It's called Inventor's Fair, but Matt is the inventor of unfair decks all the time.
And I think this sort of game here is really illustrating one of the strengths of the Krark-Clan Ironworks deck. We haven't seen a Krark-Clan Ironworks.
No,
and,
this is really a Scrap Trawler deck, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really a Scrap Trawler deck, and it might even be misnamed. It's a great point. Martin is scrapping and clawing and doing everything he can, but
all right, here is Mantis Rider trying to get in, trying to get Matt to half. We're going to see. We're going to cycle it.
That's gross.
Star,
I mean, that's just gross.
To get an Engineered Explosives back. We're going to sacrifice the Engineered Explosives. By the way, that's going to get a Pyrite Spellbomb back. Again, Matt is down a Scrap Trawler, but up several other cards.
Yeah, and you know, his hand is still stocked with goodness. He has an Inventor's Fair out with plenty of artifacts, and Martin is really down to the nub here. He's got pretty good draw, honestly. He mostly drew spells, just 3 lands is basically what you want with this Humans deck, but, I mean...
Phantasmal Image, not a great card in this matchup at all.
And yeah, what is Kitesail Freebooter going to do?
Yeah, Kitesail Freebooter comes down.
And you can just see Martin's demeanor. He's just like, what am I supposed to do? You might see him pick his cards up here pretty soon.
Yeah, there's 2 Engineered Explosives. There's a Pyrite Spellbomb. There's an Ancient Stirrings, which, you know, potentially represents some fraction of a Krark-Clan Ironworks, which is why, you know, you see that go under the Kitesail Freebooter, and now an Ether Vial.
Yeah, Matt could have discarded his whole hand there and still be a pretty big favorite in this game. With the Inventor's Fair and Mind Stone and the Buried Ruin that we just saw him use to get the Scrap Trawler back, he didn't even need the cards in his hand.
And he's actually going to use the Spellbomb here to kill the Kitesail Freebooter and get his Ancient Stirrings back.
Yeah, I think at this point now he's going to just try to find that Ironworks just to get the game over with. You know, it's.
Let's see if he can find it.
Although, you know, at 7 life, facing nothing and 1 card in hand, he could probably win this game with 10 attacks from Scrap Trawler. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen.
All right. Is that another Buried Ruin? Yeah. That's what he finds off the Ancient Stirrings, which represents another Scrap Trawler,
yeah.
Another whatever he wants to sort of reset the whole thing.
So
now Inventor's Fair gets sacrificed.
Yeah, there was a temptation to leave the Inventor's Fair on the battlefield for a while, you know, because the life is just making the game, putting the game out of reach for Martin. But with all of that goodness in his hand, Matt knows that he can just win the game right now.
Well, here's the Krark-Clan Ironworks. And Martin's got to know this deck well enough at this point. I'm curious how much he's going to let his time go. So sacrifice Darksteel Citadel, sacrifice second Darksteel Citadel. 4 mana in the mana pool. He's going to sack a Chromatic Sphere. Get back an Engineered Explosives. So there's a Terrarian.
And, you know, so Matt is obviously gonna win this game, but you know Martin's gonna let him go through the motions. Here, I think it won't take Matt very long to do the mechanics of this, and you know Martin may not know the exact deck list that Matt has. May want to know the quantity of things like Engineered Explosives, like Pyrite Spellbomb, to help him make decisions in future games.
Now Mirror Retriever has joined the equation thanks to Inventor's Fair, and you see Matt showing him, I'm going to just keep looping these. I'm going to keep making mana. Eventually, I'm going to put a Chromatic Star or Sphere into the mix. And then I'm going to Pyrite Spellbomb you to death 15 times, and that's just very easy for me to do.
Yep. impressive stuff from Matt Nass, and that was off of a mulligan. So, Martin had a turn to Thalia, but really, the Humans deck really wants to start the game on turn 1, and Martin's going to be hoping for one of either a Vile, Noble Hierarch, or Champion in game 2. Sideboard here. So Martin has some really interesting options to bring in. Kataki War's Wage, kind of a nightmare for decks with Darksteel Citadel and things of that nature. Reclamation Sage is something he'll certainly be interested in as well. Might see him use the Dark Confidant just because Matt's not putting a ton of pressure on his life total, so just to try to refill his hand. From Matt's perspective, Gear per Aether Grid is something he might be interested in. That he can turn his deck into almost like artifact control and just fight through all of Martin's deck that way. And of
again,
course,
he has to worry about something like Gear per Aether Grid. Does that get around Stony Silence?
It does get around Stony Silence.
So that's a card because it's the ability is on the Aether Grid, not on the artifact.
Right.
And that's something you have to think about from the Humans deck.
Right. We more frequently see things like Reclamation Sage and Kentucky out of the human sideboard than something like Stony Silence, just because of the way the mana base and Aether Vials are constructed. It's difficult to fit Stony Silence in, but of course, anyone who's playing a deck with Darksteel Citadel in it is thinking about Stony Silence in post-sideboard games, and Gear per Aether Grid is something that debuted a few years ago as a countermeasure to that. For Lightning Bolt as a sideboard card is really interesting. Lightning Bolt, probably the best card ever in the history of Modern, and here we see it in Matt Nass's sideboard. Here it's fantastic. Earlier we mentioned Martin's 3 best countermeasures are the Thalia, the Kitesail Freebooter, and the Meddling Mage. Add to that now Kataki, all of them fall to a Lightning Bolt for just 1 mana.
So how many cards overall do you expect Matt to bring in here?
Well, we're certainly going to see the 4 Lightning Bolts. I think that he wants to do the Gear per Aether Grid, so probably those 6. Worm Coil Engine, that's kind of like there's a leveling game there, right? I think he'll expect Martin to board out some number of Reflector Mages, maybe, since Matt's only real good target is Scrap Trawler. But if you bring in Worm Coil Engine and then they have Reflector Mage, it looks really, really bad. So I don't know Matt's strategy there regarding the Worm Coil Engine.
And we're expecting maybe 5 cards from Martin here, the 4 Artifact 8 cards, and probably the Dark Confidant.
Yes, correct. And in terms of sideboarding out,
well, I think if you're bringing in Kataki's War Wage, are you taking out something like Aether Vial, or is that just crazy?
I think the deck just needs it's so good when Aether Vial is active. He may shave Aether Vials. You do that against decks with lots of removal sometimes. So we'll see.
All right, well, it looks like the players are just about ready to go here. Oh, nope. Martin does not like that.
Yeah, and Martin, you looked at the first couple cards in his hand. Champion of the Parish, Dark Confidant, Meddling Mage, exactly the tools that he wanted. And it's like, okay, what am I missing? I have it all. 1 land. And, certainly Martin's going to go down to 6 here. Matt looks content with his hand.
Hello.
Hey, Rich, what's going on?
Just wanted to trail something upcoming on the broadcast. At the end of this match, not this next game necessarily, at the end of this match, I'm going to be back here with the 2 of you, just briefly to introduce a very important and very special video that people have been putting together here in the hall. As you may be aware, Wedge, the mana source, is in quite significant trouble at the moment, having emergency surgery for his back, and there is a little video that we wanted everyone to see. So at the end of this match, I'll be here and we'll watch that video. So a little programming note for you. Meanwhile,
right. Thanks, Rich.
Back to the action.
All right, well, Martin Yuza went back to the well for 6 new cards and found a hand with Aether Vial.
Yeah, and he'll be happy to have Aether Vial in the 6-card hand. Now, when you have Aether Vial, it can produce so much virtual mana over the course of the game that as long as he doesn't draw too many land cards, he should be able to operate pretty effectively.
All right, there's Thalia. And that comes down, but there's already a Pyrite Spellbomb in play for Matt Nass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw Matt keep his hand very quickly, and we can see why. Mox Opal, probably one of the best cards ever, again, in the history of Modern. Pyrite Spellbomb, so an answer card and mana, so he's got all he needs.
Pyrite Spellbomb is like the glue guy that gets signed to multiple World Series winning teams,
yes,
or multiple NBA champions. It's like a Robert Ory.
Yeah,
not an amazing card on its own, but boy, it has shown up in a lot of combo decks that have done very well.
Much more than Life Spark Spellbomb.
I mean, I'm a fan. Well, there you see Lightning Bolt. That's a card we talked about while these guys were sideboarding. And he's going to keep his Spell Bomb preserved here.
Yeah, and Martin has an interesting play he could make here. He could activate Aether Vial and play Phantasmal Image, copy Thalia, let the first Thalia die to the Legend rule. I believe you can do that with Phantasmal Image. It might say non-Legend on it. I actually don't know. Phantasmal Image, exact wording on that card. He would love to have a Thalia in play, basically.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't care how he gets it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so he could do that.
Yeah, but then the Phantasmal Image is just going to get targeted by the Pyrite Spell Bomb.
Well, Matt, as far as we see, doesn't have access to any colored mana, so he needs to find himself another artifact.
He's used his energy. Yeah. Used his energy for that from the Aether Hub.
Oh, wow.
There's there's an Ichor Wellspring.
So this is a difficult spot for Matt to navigate perfectly, because when your opponent has an Aether Vial out and they're playing Humans has a core of the deck that remains the same, but there's a lot of kind of interesting corner cases. Are they playing things like Restoration Angel or random other flash creatures? What does an Aether Vial on 2 represent? It can be a really wide range of cards. So this game is much more difficult for Matt to correctly sequence his removal spells while continuing to kind of develop his combo game plan.
So in comes the Phantasmal Thalia, and now a Kataki's War Wage. Kataki War's Wage for Martin Yuza.
Yeah, not the most brutal Kataki. I mean, in this situation, the Pyrite Spellbomb could deal with it immediately. Matt also has the option to use Pyrite Spellbomb on Thalia, let the Wellspring die, and he really will just have an Opal that's going to get eaten by Kataki. But the question is, yeah, Matt just feels like his game plan, he can't really develop it while Kataki's on the battlefield.
How about another Phantasmal Image? This one copying Kataki, and now forcing Matt Nass to pay the toll here.
Yep.
On his next turn. He's got 2 artifacts that he has to pay for, or doesn't have to pay for.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to see him pay for the Wellspring, I imagine, but he may want to keep that Mox Opal around since it's the only source of red mana right now.
So it looks like he is paying for the Opal. He's going to let the Wellspring die, which means he gets to draw a card. There's not that many better feelings than drawing 2 cards at the start of your turn.
No, but you see Martin's deck with the Aether Vial is able to just do so much more. Twice Aether Vialing in Phantasmal Images, copying a Legend in response to removal in order to keep that Legend in play. So sharp play by Martin, and we see the difference in how the Humans deck operates once it gets onto the battlefield turn 1.
Oh, now here's a Scrap Trawler. What is the play from Martin here?
Oof.
See, it looks like he has another Thalia in hand. He goes up to 3 on the Aether Vial. He's got to pay 1 to upkeep it himself.
Right.
Again, Kataki War's Wage is a fair symmetrical Magic card.
Yeah, and that mana that he had to spend to keep his Aether Vial around meant that he could not deploy the Thalia's Lieutenant that he has in his hand. But an Aether Vial on 3 represents possible Reclamation Sage, represents possible Reflector Mage, and of course, Martin would love to draw Mantis Rider here. Mantis Rider, obviously, having that 3rd point of toughness gets out of Pyrite Spellbomb range. And Martin thinking, look, if I draw spells, I'm pretty happy about that. If I draw a land, I can still deploy this Thalia's Lieutenant. So, Martin, not unhappy about the way this has developed so far.
Yeah, past the turn, no use from the Aether Vial.
And he just keeps trying to drop creatures.
Yeah, he has another Phantasmal Image in hand.
He made a very defensible decision to tick the Aether Vial up to 3, and thus far it hasn't totally worked out for him.
So Scrap Trawler gets in the way of the Thalia, and now that's going to let Matt Nass chump block the first striker and get back a Pyrite Spellbomb when the Scrap Trawler hits the graveyard.
Yeah, he wants the Pyrite Spellbomb. That's kind of the key.
Now he's going to sacrifice Buried Ruin and get back Scrap Trawler. Let's see how robust. He just lets the Mox go.
Yeah.
It'll be back.
Yeah, he's pretty far away from Metalcraft right here, and I think he wants to be utilizing all of his mana this turn. So, and again, yeah, as you mentioned, it'll be back. He has a Scrap Trawler and the Spellbomb that we know about, so he would rather just have a free Opal rather than one that he had to upkeep.
And I just want to, every time I watch this KCI deck, I just want Rest in Peace.
Oh, yeah, Rest in Peace and Stony Silence, fairly effective against the KarkClan Ironworks deck, which is why.
But that's literally just packing a sideboard for Matt Nass and Andy
Right.
Backstrom.
Yep.
Because again, this is not a deck we see a ton of people playing.
No. Yeah, no, it's and there you see Stony Silence, and once again, our friends in the booth are trolling me with a picture from a set that I don't recognize. So.
There's the Spellbomb. There's a Mox.
Yep.
So Kataki still waging war.
Now Martin really
Much
needs
better.
really needs to not draw another 2-drop creature. It wants lands or 3 drops.
All right, here we go. Pyrite Spellbomb just targets Athalia, and it's dead because of Phantasmal Image. It's a very fragile creature.
Yes.
It would also be dead if it wasn't fragile.
It's all sorts of dead.
Yeah.
And poor Martin, no Mantis Rider and no land again.
Wow.
You got to feel for him. He took a mulligan this game, had a pretty good opening. Made a decision that just is not working out for him. It seems like he just keeps drawing more Thalias.
Matt Nass pays for the Mox Opal this time. And now is going to cast a Scrap Trawler. Oh, no.
Yeah, awkwardly has a second copy of the legendary Inventor's Fair.
Okay.
So 4 mana.
Oh, he's got KarkClan Ironworks. Engineered Explosives for nothing. But that lets him sack that for 2 mana. So here we see Matt is going to start tracking his mana. So he sacks the Mox Opal, taps it for a green, makes 2 colorless. He's now going to play an Ichor Wellspring with the 2 colorless. Sacks the Engineered Explosives. So he's got 3 mana in his mana pool. Uses that to cast Scrap Trawler. And now Martin Yuza
Oh, wow.
is going to finally pull the trigger on his Ether Vial, and he's got a Reclamation Save
Wow.
that he's targeting KarkClan Ironworks.
I don't know if he just drew that or if he was holding it for this moment, but the timing here is just perfect. Matt has cycled through a lot of the permanents that he had on the battlefield, expecting to have a huge turn with Scrap Trawler and Ironworks, and it's not going to work out for him.
So now we see Matt has sacrificed the Ichor Wellspring in response to that. KarkClan Ironworks gets sacked, now 4 mana.
Oh my gosh. He found another Ironworks.
Wow.
So, he doesn't have another artifact to keep the chain going for that particular turn, but he's really well set up for his next turn. So Martin is going to need to find a way to do some of this interaction that the deck does on this turn. You look at him thinking on his upkeep, with that Kataki, should I keep this Vial around? What do I need to do? I can't just say go against 5 mana and Ironworks and Trawler. So
He does have a Phantasmal Image, and that's got to be what he's thinking about because he can get rid of that other KarkClan Ironworks.
Yep. He does not want to let the Vial go, but he may have to.
He's like, what are the odds I got to draw land eventually, right?
Yeah.
This is the turn, right?
This is the inflection point. Yeah, this game.
Okay, well, you know what? Martin says, I can't risk it. I got to let it go. Of course there was
Finally
a land
draws a
on top.
land. Yeah.
Of course there was a land. And now Phantasmal Image is going to come down. It's going to copy the Reclamation Sage. And he kills the scrap trawler instead of killing the Car Clan Ironworks.
Right. Matt's a little resource light, so basically the Ironworks by itself is not going to do anything. Matt's going to need to find some more
Only
food.
2 cards in hand.
Yeah, and Martin's trying to get Matt dead. The longer this goes, the worse it is for Martin.
All right, Matt falls to 8. So this is going to be an Ichor Wellspring. We saw that in hand for him.
Ichor Wellspring's so good with the Ironworks when you're starting to get something going. It's a divination. It makes mana. It's
essentially free.
Yep.
What is the play for Matt Nass? This deck's so complicated to play.
Really complicated, and in sharp contrast with the last game, Martin is presenting a pretty significant clock. 6 points that we can see, and then obviously we talked about Mantis Rider. He could be threatening lethal on the next turn. So Matt really has his back against the wall.
So here we see Chromatic Star, and Matt sacks it, not to its own ability, but sacks it to the Car Clan Ironworks. You still get to draw a card, make 2 mana though. So now he plays another one, goes down, goes up to 3 mana here. So digging through his deck, really looking for another copy of Scrap Trawler.
Funny story. One of my first tournaments back after taking a few years off from Magic, I played Affinity, and I put 4 Chromatic Spheres in my deck, and I was widely mocked in the tournament. I did not know the Chromatic Star had been printed. A strict upgrade over Chromatic Sphere.
I'm trying to get a look at his hand here. It does not look like he found a Scrap Trawler.
Yeah, Chromatic Star, we've seen it in the mono green Tron deck. We see it be really kind of an all-star here in Car Clan Ironworks. Chromatic Star, even if it's destroyed by some sort of removal spell, any way that it gets put into your graveyard, you're going to get that draw card trigger. It fixes your mana. You get to cycle through. So,
by the way, that's a Ghirapur Ether Grid.
Yeah, the worst enemy of Phantasmal Images everywhere is that Ghirapur Ether Grid.
So now Buried Ruin is letting Matt return something. He's trying to decide. It could get a Scrap Trawler, but it looks like he might just go for the Mox.
And
he does.
The players have played it at a very brisk pace, in my opinion, certainly given the complexity of the games. And you still note the clock is at 12 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. If Martin wins this, both players are going to be hard-pressed to win in under 10. Maybe not Martin.
You will see some turbo shuffling. But
Matt Nass, certainly.
But Matt may have turned the corner here. That Ether Grid is just so strong against Martin's board of 2 creatures with the Phantasmal, claws, and then a 1 toughness creature. And
so Ken just clean up the board as it stands.
It will take some time, though. I think Martin is deciding he has a Thalia's Lieutenant and Thalia's Lieutenant and a Thalia herself, and just deciding kind of how he wants to deploy this here. He knows that his board can get ripped apart by this. I think what Martin's considering here is he wants to get a +1/+1 counter onto this Reclamation Sage, because it's the only creature that will not die to the Phantasmal, doesn't have the Phantasmal claws. So he chooses to attack before playing the Thalia's Lieutenant because he wants to get that 2nd toughness to make it so that he has a resilient threat for post-combat.
So two artifacts get tapped.
Oh, wow. His land was coming to play tapped, so it's just brutal the way the sequencing has occurred for Martin. Nothing he can do about it, obviously, but
Kataki's War's Wage is off the table. Matt's at 5. He does not have a lot of room to work with.
Yeah.
Mantis Rider becomes terrifying at this stage of the game.
Certainly, yeah. But one more artifact from Matt, basically of any kind, is just brutality. As it is right now, he can already kill 2 of Martin's creatures. But one more artifact would allow him to clear Martin's board entirely.
We're approaching the 10-minute mark left in the round here.
If there are any issues with your parent,
And really, it would be Matt that would be more interested in accelerating the pace of this here. Martin's deck very capable of winning a 5-minute game.
Oh, absolutely.
Matt's deck almost impossible.
We've seen the Humans deck attacking for 5 on turn 2
Yep.
with a Champion of the Parish, 2 Noble Hierarchs, multiple times. Okay, so now Inventor's Fair goes to the yard. And what is he going to get? Looks like it looks like an engineered explosives.
I think he just wants a 0 casting cost artifact.
So something that he can set up his whole cycle.
Yep. Right, and this allows him to still have the ability to Pyrite Spellbomb something.
Wow, you see Martin rubbing his hands together.
Once that
because
Mantis Rider.
Mantis Rider represents lethal damage here off the top. Oh, Martin clucks his tongue.
Yeah, of course, Matt still does have that Pyrite Spellbomb, available to take
Sure.
out the Phantasmal creature, but Mantis, this would have been the right turn to draw Mantis Rider for sure. As it is, I think that last turn we saw Matt really turn the corner.
All right, gets in with the Sage. That's going to drop Matt to 3. Now we're going to see Champion of the Parish. And he's going to follow that up with Thalia. And that puts a second point of toughness onto the champion.
I just realized my error from earlier, which is that Reclamation Sage, that Phantasmal Image is not a human. So that's the reason why Martin elected to not make that Thalia's Lieutenant play that I discussed earlier.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, so...
The weird post-sideboard
Yeah, it's
non-human.
an Elf Shaman. So one of the very few non-human cards this human deck plays. So my mistake.
All right, well, here comes Scrap Trawler back.
And this is where things are going to start to get very, very ugly for Martin. You can tell when Martin drew that last card his turn, he rubbed his hands
Oh,
together.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
like,
no, he was like, come on,
where's that
Mantis
Mantis Rider, but now.
So now Matt taps 2 artifacts to ping the Thalia. Uses that mana that he then sacks to the Karklan Ironworks to play the Scrap Trawler.
And the beauty of the Ether Grid here is that Matt can utilize artifacts before sacrificing them to the Ironworks, so he's kind of getting his cake and eating it too.
Yeah, now here you see then Pyrite Spellbomb he activates to kill the champion. Now an Engineered Explosives. He's actually going to put... Is he going to put a mana into it?
I would like to repeat some of the announcements I made earlier today. Namely, this is a competitive rules enforcement.
Yeah, and we're talking about 2 players who are undefeated right here. I think we've passed, speaking of inflection points, the time in which Matt could win a game 3. So he really needs to win this game if he's going to get a win. Obviously, he's in great shape.
Yeah, ticking down towards 6 minutes here. Not sure if there's any extra time, but we haven't really had any delays. I mean, these players have played briskly throughout. There's a lot of decisions.
So Martin has a 1-turn window, huh? I'm not sure if Matt had to give him this 1-turn window or not, but he's going to get it.
Wow. Martin is going to get to untap and attempt to find Mantis Rider. Is there anything else that'll do it for him here? Or is Martin, or Matt's not done yet?
He may be able to assemble a Pyrite Spellbomb, the ability to activate it, and a Gear per Aether Grid. I'm not sure. 2, 4. No, I think he's going to get a window here.
2 mana in his pool.
But at this point, it's a little difficult for me to follow exactly where Matt is in his turn, but nothing for Martin except for exactly Mantis Rider matters.
Oh, well, there's a lightning.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's what he was looking for, and that now that covers his one basic the one problem that he could face.
Martin rips his card. As far as he knows, it needs to be Mantis Rider.
And for Martin's sake, I hope he didn't draw Mantis Rider because that would just be too painful. Lightning Bolt, again, from one of the very few sets I don't recognize. Lightning Bolt, which has been printed 43 times so far in Magic history.
We'll try to get you like the most commonly viewed white-bordered Lightning Bolt. That
there we
there's
go.
A really pretty
Beautiful. One. We'll see some of those tomorrow, hopefully.
All right, so here's Meddling Mage and Athalia's Lieutenant. Meddling Mage is a 3/3. Thalia's Lieutenant gets taken down by the Ether Grid. We don't know. Let's see if we know what Meddling Mage named here.
So Martin fiddling through his graveyard right now. He could put that graveyard into his hand and not win at this point.
So Scrap Trawler was named with Meddling Mage. There's a Terrarian.
Do you ever just lean over on the plane and the person next to you is playing solitaire and you just get a good stare at what they're doing? And you kind of want to hit them in the elbow and say, hey, move that king into the, but they're like, nope, I don't want to do it. That's what, at this point, that's what Martin's doing to Matt.
Help.
Just watch.
No
yeah,
help.
Exactly.
Well, Lightning Bolt takes out the Meddling Mage, and Matt Nass's only question is whether or not he can do this before the plane lands at the game in 4 minutes.
Right. And, if it's your first time following an event of this level, if this game doesn't finish, which is certainly possible given the time remaining in the round, Matt will win the match by a score of 1-0-1. So he does not need to actually win the game in order for him to win the match. He just needs to not lose. But Martin here.
I think Martin is got to be pretty close to just. There's the Mantis Rider. But as you said,
what a cruel draw that was for Martin. He'd been begging for it for about the better part of the last half hour, and it finally gave it to him when he had no chance left.
But Matt Nass gets to tap 2 artifacts to Ether Grid, deal 1 point of damage to Mantis Rider, and then sacrifice the Pyrite Spell Bomb for the last 2 points of damage to kill it.
Wait, is Matt down to nothing? I thought so. Actually, he may not be out of it yet. Matt may be down to nothing left. So
there's a dark comp.
So Martin may have the ability to draw another Mantis Rider yet. I thought Matt had more action in his hand here. So only 3 toughness creatures matter because of that Darksteel Citadel in play. Oh man, now he's got 2 Darksteel Citadels. But if he draws another Mantis Rider, what's this?
And a Reclamation Sage for Gearport Ether Grid.
Okay.
You see Martin puts it directly into the graveyard, just shortcutting because he knows Matt's not going to miss killing it there.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought that Matt had way more going on than he did.
There's a second Karklan Ironworks, and Matt's out of gas. There's a 1 toughness, a 1 power flyer. Here's Ichor Wellspring. It's going to be a couple of draws here for Matt Nass. Draws. Can sack it and draw.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
So I called this one too early, so my apologies there. But man, poor Martin. He fought tooth and nail this game. He's just scrapping and trawling to try to get himself back into this game.
Now we see sack the Ichor Wellspring get a second scrap trawler. That means he's able to return 2 artifacts each time here, and he should be able to assemble the loop that'll let him make enough mana and just continually cycle through. He can demonstrate. There's the Mox Opal. He's going to pull out the Pyrite Spell Bomb.
I did not think Martin had a window there. I really thought that it was very close to 0% to win, but he actually had a turn where he could have drawn Mantis Rider and won this game.
So it shows him the Mox Opals, demonstrating, he's making 3 mana off of each of them. Here's the Sphere. Sphere lets him return 2 opals. He's going to actually go Opals Engineered Explosives. Gets to draw a card.
And the storm count is?
It's raining all day. Gets an Ichor Wellspring, gets another Ichor Wellspring. There's the mirror retriever. That's the loop. And that's it. And that's it for Martin. Wow. Matt Nass goes to 12-0 here with the KC IDEC Karkland Ironworks. Rich, he is definitely, we think of Lantern, you think of Zach Elsick.
He's the master.
He is the, foreman of Karkland Ironworks.
And he plays it so confidently that he tricked me into thinking that he was 100%, when in reality he was probably closer to 80% to win the game. So
definitely play tested his table presence coming into this event.
All right, well, thanks, guys. We're going to take a little break from the action. May get some time walk in just a little bit. But as I mentioned earlier in the round, we have a video we want to show you that's been put together by some of the folks at Channel Fireball Events and Wizards of the Coast. I want to tell you about an ongoing situation that's been here at Las Vegas. I really don't need to explain it because there's a lot of love in the content community for each other and an understanding that we are a community, not just individuals plowing our own furrow. So I'm going to hand it over to them, and if you've got 5 minutes of your time, just have a listen to this.
As many of you know, Wedge from the Manosaurus has been rushed to the emergency room here in Vegas. He's been having back problems for a little while, and we found out recently that he's going to have to undergo emergency back surgery. It's pretty serious, and unfortunately Wedge does not have health insurance, so the medical bill is likely to be pretty astronomical. And here's a guy that has given so much to our community. He runs a lot of charity events for St. Jude and things like that, and if we all could just come together here and give a little bit back, help him get on his feet, help him get the help that he needs, I really would encourage everybody to go to the GoFundMe campaign that we've set up for him and donate even just a little bit, even just $1. There's enough of us out there that could make a huge difference, and we can get Wedge back on his feet and making those worst card ever videos as soon as possible.
Hey Wedge, you've been a great support and help to me getting started in doing content, and I'm really sorry to hear about the issues you're going through. So if anyone has the opportunity or the means to check out the GoFundMe and help out with this, even a few dollars would be a great help in this situation.
Hey Wedge, Cedric Phillips here. I heard about everything. I hope you're doing okay if you get the opportunity to see this. We are all obviously pulling for you. And for everybody watching at home, please go visit the GoFundMe for how much Wedge has done for the community. It is definitely in our best interest to give back. We want him to get better. He's a huge part of this fantastic community. So go Wedge, and go everybody watching the stream.
Wedge from the Manosaurus is a pillar of the Magic community and the YouTube community, and anything that you can do to help him in this moment, particularly with his GoFundMe to help with his surgery, would be much appreciated.
Wedge has been doing incredible work for such a very long time now, and I feel like has really endeared himself to the community, has done a lot to give back, has been trying to make resources for Magic players that, not everyone can make every video. So I think he fills a very important niche, and I think it's really unfortunate he's unable to make it this weekend. And if you can help him out with his GoFundMe, if every person donated $1, I feel like we'd reach our goal in no time.
Wedge has been a beacon of light in the Magic community for as long as I've been making content, and he's really emphasized making Magic accessible for everybody, whether it's making it affordable, making formats understandable. We really are better for having him in the community, and you should definitely go visit the GoFundMe, go visit him in the hospital, and do whatever you can to support him and bring him back to us.
Hey Wedge, I really want you to get well soon. We all do. I know that anything can happen, and this is a real tragedy, but I also know that this community is the greatest community, and great things can happen too. And a great thing would be if you donate to this campaign so that Wedge can get the help he needs to get better as soon as possible.
Wedge, we all love you. You're great. We really hope you can get better, especially so you can make some more worst cards ever for us. And to anyone who's seeing this, if you can spare even $1 or $2, it would make a huge difference to help Wedge's recovery.
Hi, I'm Steve Argyle. I'm an artist for Magic the Gathering, and I want you all to know about Wedge's GoFundMe page. He's having some medical problems, and we would love to have you help support Wedge. He's done so much for the community. Wedge, we really hope that you're feeling better, you're getting better, and that you're back hanging out with us and playing Magic again very soon.
Wedge is someone who has given so much to this community, and I think in a lot of ways to the larger world, and he's certainly given a lot to me over the years. I don't think I would even be where I am without him, and I just really think that if it is possible, and if it is within your means, and just you know, I mean, he'd love a virtual hug as payment enough, and I know that'll make his day, but if there's any ability to help the GoFundMe, he's in trouble in so many ways, and I'd love to make it one less way that he's in trouble.
They say you don't really know a man until you've played a two-headed giant Scheherazade sub-game with him. Wedge is an awesome human being. He does amazing things for the Magic community, and this is a chance for us to help him out. So please go to the GoFundMe page. He really needs our help, and one of the things I love about the Magic community is we look after our own. Please help.
Wedge is an unbelievable pillar of this community. We love him. We want you to feel better, Wedge. Everybody I know at Loading Ready to Run says, get better, get back on your feet. And to everybody watching, please go and check out the GoFundMe. If you can support Wedge in any way possible, I know that would mean the world to us and to him. So go check it out, please.
Hello everyone, I'm Quinn Kiefer. I play Magic the Gathering competitively, and I love going to GPs because I get to see old friends, make new friends, and get to play the best game in the world, Magic. My round's starting.
back to the booth. Brian David Marshall here with very potentially Pro Tour Team Series finalist competitor. Paul Rietzle came over while we were looking at some of the slides for the Team Series. He's like, oh, you happen to know who's in first place? I said, yeah, I do, Paul. It's you. We got you.
Yeah, no, when Owen, Huey, and Reed were trying to find people, I just made sure I was like in the background saying, oh, pick me, and I got lucky enough to get put on that super squad. So,
yeah, 5 Hall of Famers on the team.
4
Hall of Famers.
4 Hall of Famers. Reed, I think, will be first ballot.
And Andrew Cuneo, yeah. Pretty crazy. Okay, so we have some Magic for you. It's a control mirror, and Paul has some thoughts on the mana bases of modern control decks when we get down to the floor. All right, so it's Patrick Tierney on Jeskai. He's playing against Corey Burkhart. Corey, of course, playing Grixis control, and you were a little surprised as you looked at these deck lists.
Yeah, what stood out to me about Patrick's deck, he's playing a 3-color control deck with Cryptic Command and Teferi, with Field of Ruin in his deck, and he has only 24 lands. I mean, it's just wild to me that's enough, considered enough for Modern. Corey with 25 land and nothing that he's trying to do that costs 5 mana. A little bit more my speed in terms of mana base, but it's working out for Patrick so far.
But now you see something like Serum Visions for, do you sort of shrink the deck a little for that card?
Serum Visions helps a little bit for sure, as does Search for Azcanta, which we were just mentioning, so that helps a lot. But 24 land and 4 Serum Visions is not going to be consistently playing your 5th land on turn 5 by any stretch, and especially in these kinds of matchups, control versus control, oftentimes the person who misses a land drop first, who blinks first, is the one that loses.
Well, here we see Patrick Tierney's got Serum Visions on turn 1. Turn 3, he's able to play Search for Azcanta and another Serum Visions.
Yeah, I mean, he's drawing the exact right part of his deck for this matchup for sure. Serum Visions letting him sculpt his draw. Search for Azcanta is a major threat in these 3-color blue deck mirror matchups. So, Corey's deck is equipped with 4 copies of Field of Ruin, so Search for Azcanta is not likely to run away with the game, but it's a way that he's going to start by leaning on Corey early.
Corey, of course, super well known for playing this Grixis control deck. And you see him Thought Scour himself. That's one of the cards he has in there to shrink his deck. Does he also play Serum Visions?
He does not have Serum Visions, and we just saw an absolutely brutal sequence for Corey where he did not have a 3rd land. He intelligently did not sacrifice his Polluted Delta, understanding that the potential 2-life from a shock land not as important as the drawing a land the next turn. He Thought Scoured himself, milled 2 lands, and bricked off on drawing a 3rd land. So,
and then just discards Lightning Bolt to hand size.
Yeah, brutal.
And here we see Patrick Tierney's just continuing on Serum Visions off Snapcaster Mage here.
Yeah. Here's the good news for Corey is as follows. Patrick is playing a lot of cards like Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix, Path to Exile that aren't that good against Corey's deck. So, he really only has a few cards, obviously Teferi, the Hero of Dominaria, that can allow him to really get so far ahead that Corey can't catch back up. So if Corey's able to draw, a land on this next turn, he can get back into this game very quickly.
Yeah, and just decides to fetch and shock himself to Lightning Bolt, that Snapcaster Mage there, and just get that off the table. And that is a Tasigur the Golden Fang. He doesn't have mana, but he doesn't have lands, but with Delve, he has more than enough mana here to pay for this huge legend.
Yeah, and Tasigur could really be a land here. It's going to demand an answer at some point. Wow, yes.
He just has Supreme Verdict.
One of the 2 copies Supreme Verdict.
It's going to be, and the perfect way to use that in this matchup, right? Like you're never going to get the kind of dream use out of a Supreme Verdict, right? You're never going to get like that 3-for-1 or anything.
Sure.
Like that.
And importantly, Patrick much would rather cast Supreme Verdict there than something like Path to Exile, which could unmana screw Corey.
You see a Logic Knot.
Wow, he's just starting to go to the face.
He just fires off a couple of bolts.
Yeah, and the reason why he's doing that is he wants to flip that Search for Azcanta. Corey, we mentioned 4 copies of Field of Ruin. He hasn't found any of them yet, so Patrick in great shape.
Look at this. Patrick Tierney just going face. Colligan's Command is the play here for Corey Burkhart. I think that's going to get Logic Knotted. That's going to get Mana Leaked.
Yeah. But Corey's not that unhappy. I mean, that wasn't that exciting of a call against command. It was probably discard and return a Tasker that he couldn't cast anyway.
And it keeps Patrick off of being able to activate his Scant to the Sunken Ruin.
Exactly right, yeah. So it really kind of did its job here.
Inquisition Kozilek is going to get a Logic Knot out of Patrick's hand.
And we see, we were talking about earlier, right? So Patrick is way ahead on mana. He has an active Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, which could take the game away. But he only has one card left in his hand, you know? A lot of those Lightning Bolts got Corey down to 9, but, you know, he's kind of down to the bare bones here. He's going to need this Azcanta to work overtime.
Yeah, he needs Corey to not find a Field of Ruin.
Right.
And Corey has plenty of cards in hand that he can start tilting this game back in his favor.
Sure.
You know, it's that old adage about, you know, it's much more powerful to draw out of Mana Screw than it is to draw out of Mana Flood, because the reason is you end up with just a ton of cards in hand.
Right. But, you know, Patrick, obviously, with having so many lands in the battlefield, Corey cannot let him keep Azcanta the Sunken Ruin out for that many turns, or Patrick's mana advantage will start to cascade with the card advantage, and he'll pull too far ahead. And, of course, you know, Teferi, the Hero of Dominaria, it would just be absolutely brutal for Corey right now.
Oh, that's what he's digging for. Let's see what he finds in Azcanta. You can also just find bolts for the next 3
there's
turns.
nothing wrong with just finding a Helix. I mean, that's going to put Corey under some significant pressure. That's part of the advantage of playing the Jeskai colors instead of Grixis, is you have that the life gain. Corey, when he's at 9, he's staying at 9.
So this is going to be Serum Visions. Gets a little bit of information for his search for Azcanta. I mean, assume that any card you put down there is going to be a card you want off of search.
Yeah, but basically, at this point, Patrick wants to find counter magic, planeswalkers, and lands. Everything else is, you know, incidental, right? Like, he can find enough bolts to finish Corey off, but he would rather take control of the game first rather than let Corey back into it.
All right, here's Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage is targeting.
Probably just a bolt.
I'm not sure if he has any bolts left in his
Oh,
board.
okay.
I think this is main phase. Maybe he's gonna Serum Visions.
Oh, I see. It's on Patrick's main phase.
I think so. Yeah, it's going to get countered here with Logic Knot. Corey's like, I don't need a graveyard. I'm fine. Lightning Helix you, Bolt you. Both these players 9 and 2, by the way, worth mentioning. So a win here keeps you alive for top 8 contention. A loss going to be pretty rough with this big a field. So there's Celestial Colonnade. Celestial Colonnade is going to get terminated.
Drew Bolt.
But there's the Bolt. Wow. Patrick Tierney takes that game 1-0. Just rips with Serum Visions, rips with Search for Azcanta, and is able to just keep Corey from ever recovering from some early mana difficulties. And I can tell you that Patrick is still alive for top 8 contention. He wins game 2, wins the match 2-0 over Corey. Corey playing for some pro points and some cash finish here at this point.
Yeah, and I think right there we mentioned the mana before the match started. We saw the power of Serum Visions right there, allowing Patrick to draw his lands. Corey, Thoughtscour, much less control over your draw, and even though he had a higher total amount of lands in his deck, he stumbled on mana early, and that was really the difference, and Patrick just never let him up after he put his foot on the gas.
Yeah, so we have more Magic coming up for you. Rounds getting turned around. We got a couple brief messages, and then we'll be back with the next round here at Grand Prix Las Vegas.